When I started my first ever fish room, I thought I had it all down. Until I started suffering with humidity issues, water changes that would just continually go wrong and I would start losing fish, and every problem in between. So here are the main things that I wish I knew before starting my first ever fish room. And after this video, you're gonna have all of the knowledge needed to start a fish room that breeds effectively, and that means you've got good workflow, and on top of that, it's actually got some aesthetics to it. The first thing I wish I knew was all about the layout of your room and where your room actually is. Me right now, I always do the fish room in my garage. That being said, when I started, I did it in a room. That house was on floorboards and I just overloaded those floorboards and put so much weight on them, so the floor started to sag. That means your tanks start to sink on one side, they're all out of level, and you get issues with tanks cracking under pressure. So if you're thinking about building a fish room, always go for being on a slab, cement. If you're not on a slab, what I would be doing is making sure all of the feet of your fish tanks or your racks are above the support beams in your house so that everything sits weight-wise correctly. The second part of layout is making sure that you've got enough space both in front and behind your tank for maintenance, cleaning, running filters, cables, etc., etc. When I first started, all of my tanks and racks were like backed up against a wall because I was really battling with having a small room. So I wanted as much space as possible. Doing it all again, I would pull everything just a bit off the wall so I didn't have to wrangle cables and deal with reaching around tanks. And I found when things are just difficult to do, you don't want to do them. And so that causes lags in really essential things that might improve your fish room. Other things that are important, so you're not doing heaps and heaps of manual labor, make sure you're near a drainage point so that you can water change your fish tanks and go straight into that. Make sure you avoid direct sunlight from windows because that can cause expansion and shrinkage of silicon beads and the glass, and that can cause cracking in your tank as well. Plus, lots of sun means lots of light means lots of algae, and you don't want to be battling algae while trying to breed fish and keep a really aesthetic tank. It just becomes an issue. The second thing that I absolutely wish that I knew, and I had to learn this through trial and error, do not do what I did and set everything up on the bottom rack, like all your power boards down there, because if you're water changing and you spill water or one of your tanks crack and leak, you're going to short that circuit board. When a short happens, it means if your house has got an RCD, your RCD will trip. When that happens, all of the power goes out that was on that circuit, which means your air, your heat, and the flow from your filters all stops, which creates a very bad environment for your fish. Another awesome tip that I'm doing from now is label all of the plugs that you put on your board, because if something goes wrong, a filter's burning out, a heater explodes, whatever, you want to be able to identify which of those plugs in your power board is the problem plug and unplug it straight away. If you're having to trace back cables to that power board to make sure you're pulling the right one, and heaven forbid you pull the wrong one and you don't realize, you're gonna cause problems. Label your cables. The third thing's kind of boring. It's ventilation and temperature control, but fish tanks that have got a heater in them are generally going to create humidity in your air, and that humidity can cause problems like mold. So do things that will stop that from happening. Whenever you come into your fish room, which will be once or twice a day, you open your garage door and let that humid air out, open up another door, and then it's replaced by fresh air. Couple that with adequate ventilation, good fans, etc., you are in a good spot. There are so many issues with that unseen or unthought of problem that can be solved if you allow yourself to dive into the boring stuff. The next thing that I wish I'd paid attention to is water management. When your fish room gets larger and you start getting to large operations, means lots and lots of little fish tanks. Having auto water change systems or semi-automatic water change systems helps save time so much. When my fish room grew, I didn't have that auto water change system, and I was water changing for hours and hours and hours. Sometimes water changing the entire fish room in an emergency would take me 4 hours on 30 tanks. When I got an automatic water changer, all of a sudden, it was an easy fix. I don't have to hold a hose in the water and wait and monitor and make sure no fish get sucked up. all that stuff to every single tank anymore. It's so much more simple with this good bit of tech. The next really big one for me is aeration. Lots of little appliances means lots of things can go wrong. What I ended up doing is having a central air system, one air pump that it would just blast out air that was overrated for my fish room. I was controlling the amount of air needed in every one of the fish tanks. Just make sure if you're using one single air pump, you install lots and lots of check valves. I made this mistake myself thinking they're sort of surplus to requirement. I don't need it. Let's save some money. Don't get check valves until one day the air pump turned off. And what happened was a siphon started, a very small siphon started from all of my fish tanks and sort of flooded my air pump. And all of my tanks drained down really low. Some of them drained below the heater level. I had a lot of mess to clean up after that. I'm gonna be running a shared air system, meaning that there's 2 pumps in my fish room, and it means that each of my fish tanks is gonna have one filter run from one and one filter run from the other, which means if one dies, there's a redundancy, and my fish tanks aren't just all out of air, they've at least got some form of oxygen supply and water agitation going on, even if one of my air pumps flops. One of the things that I really regret doing is saving money and not investing in good lights. They would last for about, I don't know, probably the longest time one of my lights would last is about 2 years because lots of things go on in my fish room, and they died after that. Plus, they consume so much energy that after that 2-year period was up, I may as well have bought the luxury lights in the first place. Good lighting, like the Illumagic Pixels, have got lifetime warranties on the lenses, meaning if it ever dies, you get a fresh one for free, so it's always looking prim and proper. Plus, with the good lighting, you can set up schedules, meaning that the lights turn on and off for you. You don't have to play around with those little timers that have got dials on them that when power goes out, the timer actually stops and you have to reset it every single time to the right time so it works correctly. I can't really go through this video without talking about the money mistakes that I made as well and issues that really affected the return on investment that having a profitable fish room really is and has. The problem is at the start, you don't know what's important and what's not. So it's very easy to make mistakes. Right now, I'm gonna tell you the most important things that you don't wanna skimp out on. One good version of everything, one good net, one good water changing siphon, one good bucket, that's all you really need. Don't double up on things that you've already got because it's like a slightly better model. But what you do wanna invest in is really good filters, really good lights like the Illumagic Pixels, and some form of water management system that mean you don't have to do the manual work unless you want to do the manual work. Follow those steps correctly, you're gonna have a really good looking fish room that you've dumped some money into, but is going to be high ROI. So you're gonna dump money in anyway. Make sure you put the money into the right spots so that the money comes back to you when you start breeding and selling all of your fish. Make sure you send this video to a friend who's starting a fish room. If you've already built a fish room and you're good at this, what's the biggest mistake you've made in this hobby that you want other people to learn from? And if you liked this video, you're gonna love the next one on how to make money from your aquarium this weekend. Catch you guys on the next one.